Neil Gore, welcome to Nature of Reality Radio. Old brother, I'm very glad that this day has finally come for me
Mm.
to have you as a guest on my radio show. You have made a huge difference in my life regarding my awakening, as I have listened to many of the programs that you have done, been to a couple of your conferences, and look forward to being to some of your conferences in the future. Could have well, there's a lot of conferences I like to go to, but yours is definitely one that I would have on the repeat conference list.
Thank
Definitely
you.
worthy of doing it. And so, before I give you the chance to talk about subject topics, like I said, you, relative to many of my other guests, don't really need to give your life story as much. You don't really need an introduction, but I do need to give my disclaimer out to all my listeners and such. First of all, this show, starting summer solstice around that time, I unfortunately am going to have to make this show partially pay-per-view. People will have to subscribe on Patreon in order to listen to 100% of the interview. 60 to 65% will be free, and then the rest will have to be paid for. In this day and age, it's not really such a bad thing for people to monetize their work. That people are not just doing it for the money. We all have to make a living, and well, if what Bull Polney says is true, maybe we'll get into some of that. We are in for a very rough ride in the next few weeks, economically speaking. But until then, folks, please listen to it on YouTube until I get the interviews uploaded to Cost.tv. Cost.tv, a blockchain monetization channel where I also upload my videos in addition to YouTube. In the event that my channel gets shut down, I have that backup. But I do want people to listen to Cost.tv, as I can make a little bit of a profit when people listen. So I will have the video description on YouTube. It will provide the link to the Cost.tv interview. Please listen to the YouTube video for only about 15 seconds to give me a view credit. And then after that, please, folks, listen to Cost.tv to help me monetize whatever can be monetized. So, with that being said, Neil Glory, like I said, you have helped me awaken a lot. You have chosen as the title of your organization, for lack of a better word, Portal to Ascension. I
Hmm.
love that, but at the same time, there is an ascension deception going on, which is, as George Kavassilis, who had been suckered into believing the ascension deception for a little while,
Hmm.
um, the idea that we're all going to ascend into light crystalline body beings, and it's we're not going to need to eat. We're not to survive. We're not going to have sex to reproduce, and we get to do all sorts of other things, like maybe even burp butterflies and fart rainbows. But it's not
Hmm.
that. There is no such ascension deception. It's really many would assert a way to make us complacent. So I guess, for lack of a better question to start off this interview, Neil, what is ascension and what is it not? You've got the floor. Knock that out.
Yes. All right. Thank you. I love that, bro. Thank you so much for having me, Andrew. It's good to be here. And we've been in each other's paths. I guess we've crossed each other's paths many times, right? A lot of different conferences in the past. So this is the first time I'm on your show. So thank you for having me. And so what Ascension is, right? I'll tell you my journey with Ascension, really. Like when I first got into all this information, back in 2001, when I was 18, 19, started learning about extraterrestrials and looking at ancient scriptures and seeing that they could actually be talking about star beings, or at least talking about some sort of fantastical reality, paranormal reality, vibratory reality, alternative dimensions. When I started getting into that realization, also the term ascension, was within the community too. And ascension at that point really meant to me this evolution of our own consciousness, our collective consciousness, individual and collectively, so that we can create a world where we can live based on principles that are uniting rather than divisive, and where we can basically come together with our commonalities and really utilize our intellect, our skills, our technology for the betterment of all. But at that point, when I first got into that, I was under the belief that ascension was something that we were heading towards a future component. Fast forward 12 years up until 2012, and I noticed a lot of people within, my friends and speakers and everything, a lot of people weren't even planning after 2012. It was almost like people were waiting for a date for some sort of event to occur and to happen. So the deception, the manipulation that you're kind of referring to, I think some of it might actually stem from this whole reality of trying to escape, the escapism of leaving, going into the future to change something because everything sucks now. And I realized after 2012, especially December 21st, 2012, when some of these events that people really thought were going to happen didn't happen, when the aliens didn't land, and there wasn't this huge change in consciousness. Maybe you can argue that there was, but there wasn't one so collectively that the planet just changed into this new reality. Everybody that I knew and I was associated with, for the most part, began to becoming much more present and in the moment. And my understanding of ascension shifted at that time. Instead of trying to create this reality in this world, what I've really focused on now is how we can embrace and accept our current position, but still actually take informed action. So a place of not being emotionally triggered from all of the trauma and the triggers and everything in the world, a place of stillness within, so that we can actually create real change, not based on emotional reactions that are disharmonious or distorting to us. But the paradox is that the more we can be present in the moment and truly enjoy and take life out of this present reality, the more we're able to create this future world that we live in an ascended reality. And the paradox on that is, the more that you think that ascension is something in the future that you're working towards, the less likely you're going to create it, because you're creating that lack mentality that nothing is the way it should be. So ascension is huge, right? Like, why do I call portal to ascension? Because every single topic that is within this consciousness, disclosure, ascension, ETs, interdimensional realities, paranormal, every single topic within that fits within ascension. Because ascension to me now is not only how to be present in this moment to create a reality in the future, but also is the understanding of our galactic origins. That's an Ascension teaching. The understanding of how diverse our universe is, your own how sexuality was distorted and how it's actually part of spiritual energy. How to use sound tools and different techniques to heal ourselves, how to use advanced technology, conscious technology, human body DNA-based technology to external technology to heal and align us and make us be more empowered. Every single one of these things lead to us creating an ascended world. It can even be argued, and I'm rambling here because there's so much to say, it can even be argued that the things that aren't harmonious and are even like saying are kind of creating destruction in our reality, in our life, is also in the category of ascension, because that gives us the contrast that we need in order to get the experiences to know what we really want to create in life. So the word portal to ascension, I feel when I say it, is much more generic than one person may actually, when they talk about ascension, might believe. To me, every single thing that happens in reality, whether it's creating destruction, disharmony, or anything, is leading towards an ascension. And if ascension isn't just categorized as something empowering and loving, the ascension in it is the experience, where the fact that we're having these experiences and we are playing out the roles that we're meant to play, which is to experience reality in every single facet possible, is really the ascension to me.
Thank you very much. And well, I guess the best way for me to do this interview, to try to nail out many subjects on the fly here in the hour and 15, hour and 20 minutes that we'll have, I decided to your YouTube channel, sort the videos by most popular to least popular in terms of view count. Can't help but notice a few faces that seem to stand out here looking at the videos here. Dr.
Mm-hmm.
Steven Greer is in the top 15 videos 3 times he is appearing here. Something really popular about that guy. People seem to like. There was a recent on the Third Phase of the Moon YouTube channel, a video an hour and a half long that I unfortunately did not get a chance to see, where they asserted that Steven Greer said a few things recently that would shatter the UFO paradigm. I'm hoping maybe you, since you've followed his work to such a great degree, may know a little bit more about that than
Yeah,
I
I
do.
do.
Hopefully, if you do, then by all means, could you please enlighten me and keep me up to date on what Dr. Steven Greer has said in the not too distant past, in the more present day time, that is shattering, that is bound to shatter the paradigm, as if the paradigm isn't going to be shattered a lot more. Well, hopefully it will. Something will happen when the disclosure, the mini disclosure that is set to happen later this month
Yeah.
happens. So, what is Dr. Greer talking about here?
Okay. So I actually did he just did an event. He hadn't done a live event for over a year and a half, and he just did one exactly a month ago now, and I was there with him in Phoenix, and I live streamed it. And that one is just on Vimeo for the people that registered for it. And in there, he had, you know, Carol Rosin was there, Paula Harris was there, Daniel Sheehan was there, and we're broadcasting it from Phoenix. And they were all speaking, you know, giving UFO case studies. But Carol Rosin, in particular, she and Steven Greer brought forth all these cosmonauts from Russia that were disclosing all this information about UFOs and craft. So part of that, I'm going to get into some more recent updates, but part of that was them actually cosmonauts, like part of the, like they were part of the Russian space program, went up there, did film. They were releasing footage on the webinar showing, you know, UFOs in space when they were out there, and also disclosing a lot of information um, in regards to what's coming out of Russia. That was only like maybe 10% of the event. The rest of it was Daniel Sheehan talking about things, Paula Harris talking about a couple of new case studies. But what happened a couple of weeks ago is what is more important is Steven Greer went out onto his YouTube channel and basically was trying to get ahead of um, the whole thing that's coming out in regards to Luis Elizondo and the UFO documents that are supposed to be released by June 25th. He said that he's been talking because him and Daniel Sheehan are really good friends. They were hanging out a month ago at this event in Phoenix. He was saying that Daniel Sheehan has been now employed as the lawyer for Luis Elizondo. And for those who don't know who that is, he's basically the front man right now for the whole ATIP program, which is the program that the Pentagon admitted to having, that was to study UFOs and other aerial phenomena, which is almost exactly like what Project Blue Book was for in regards to J. Allen Hynek and what he was doing. So he's basically the J. Allen Hynek of now, and he's the guy that's all like the short guy, looks like he's a short guy, white guy, military haircut. You've probably seen him. So Daniel Sheehan, he's been doing his own thing. The only time that guy has ever actually gone into a UFO event like the conferences we go to, Andrew, is the MUFON event. He's only gone to MUFON, and that just makes perfect sense because like the only thing that the government's ever admitted was legitimate UFO research is MUFON, which is why they allowed it in X-Files and all that stuff. So he never crossed over until now into the consciousness, you know, new age woo woo UFO community. Like, and then he finally did it, and he did it with one, he's going to be in an event with Billy Carson coming up next month, and then he also employed Daniel Sheehan, who is the UFO disclosure community like lawyer, that is also a really credible lawyer that's been in, you know, the North Dakota pipeline. He was working on that as well, and the Daniel Sheehan and Steven Greer spoke, and Greer was like, "Why are you working for this guy? He's trying to make everything sound like it's an aerial threat. They're trying to push forward this narrative that there's this aerial threat going on." So Sheehan said to Greer that he knows that he was told by the Pentagon to basically tell everybody that it's actually a threat, that they don't know what it is, and it could be some advanced thing, that it could be a threat. And now the Pentagon has, for some reason, gone against him and started denying him, you know, access and denying the fact that he did a lot of things. So Daniel Sheehan is now trying to get Luis Elizondo to basically admit on public TV that he was told to tell everybody it's a threat, and there is actually no evidence that it is an aerial threat, and basically come out clean. And Daniel said that he's not going to Luis Elizondo, that I will no longer represent you. If you continue with this threat thing, you need to shift the narrative. So that's where we are right now. On top of that, it was also said that Nick Pope was approached. This is all out there, so I'm not like leaking any information. It's out there in different places. But Nick Pope was actually approached probably a couple of years ago at least, and he was asked to be the front man as well for a lot of the early releases in regards to the UFO thing. Like, it's been really going on for around since 2017 on an unprecedented level, even though it started a little earlier before than that. So the New York Times, for example, 2.8 million views. on a video with Nick Pope talking about UFOs, multiple part series. He really became the front man. But part of that was he had to adopt and accept partially a narrative that was given to him from the people that want him to be the front man for this. And so not only is Dennis Sheehan working with this guy and trying to figure out the details, and we don't know all the clarity behind it, but also Nick Pope has been approached now and is basically been given views and maybe also some sort of compensation in order to basically be the front man to get the millions of views in regards to putting out a narrative that is also connected to what the DoD wants to release. So to answer your question here, it's become very confusing. It's leaked and permeated through all facets of the community. Many people are working with different individuals, and I feel that there are some of these individuals that are working, in the community right now don't really have the best interest of all of us in mind and might be spewing out certain types of agendas. And all we can really do right now is just kind of look at the scene and see what's going on and just sit back and see what happens after this month's over when everything gets released.
Yes, I got a little beef with Luis Elizondo when I did actually confront him at the
Oh yeah,
MUFON symposium in New Jersey a few years ago
that's the
and
one he
addressed,
was at. Yep.
yeah, and I made it clear to him that there's more than enough uh, laws, or should I say public policy on the books, which allows him to blow the whistle on classified info that is damaging or threatening or shows government wrongdoing. And all he did was cry home to mama and cite other stuff that said that he can't expose that.
Yeah.
So I don't know if it's cowardice or just he knows more than he wants to reveal for whatever the reason. But
Yeah.
the idea that Steven Greer, we all know Steven Greer has this thing about believing that all extraterrestrials are benevolent,
Yep.
which many seem, well, that's even if there is the truth that infinite love is the only truth, everything else is illusion. Well,
Yeah.
even that's it's a point of view issue, I think. So, well,
Exactly. It's point of view issue rather than someone being like some nefarious individual with a specific agenda. It's a lot of times point of view, and people interact with who they interact with. And he actually believes that only people with advanced consciousness could achieve advanced technology to get here, right? But that's his own perspective. It's not written doctrine.
right, right. Um, also, it turns out that the most popular video on your YouTube channel, uploaded 4 years ago, the Reality of Truth Plant Medicine documentary. Um, well, uh, I'm sure a lot of stoners and psychonauts instantly jumped on this when they saw that it was uploaded, and that may have been why it became so popular. But I do emphasize that you title it Plant Medicine Documentary, and I am someone who's very familiar with plant medicine. As a matter of fact, right now I'm actually smoking mapacho tobacco out of my pipe to try to make sure that I come out sounding more three-dimensional to people that think this stuff is far out, and also to help ground myself and whatnot. But
Yeah.
mapacho tobacco is a tobacco species that George Cavazos asserts is worthy of being called a plant medicine, unlike some other tobaccos, which may not be worthy of being called that. And I also don't inhale it in my lungs, as I assert that's the quickest way to become addicted to tobacco and nicotine. What it really should just draw it into your mouth. I have experience with ayahuasca, San Pedro, peyote, and recently, I've actually given up alcohol and made the switch to kava kava, the shamanic drink of choice of the Pacific Islanders, and I seem to like what I'm getting out of it. It's like alcohol, but without the risk of causing socially inappropriate behavior, apparently. And I encourage other people to maybe try to make the shift as well. But I'm babbling long enough. This is for you to talk about this documentary. Well, maybe not just the documentary, but in general, anything that you can spew out regarding plant medicine and the wisdom that you have about it. You got the floor. Go right ahead.
Yeah, plant medicine has been really instrumental in my healing from traumas, definitely from this life, but probably even beyond this life. That documentary was in partnership. Well, the documentary was created by a center that actually exists that we've been to. It's called Rhythmia. It's the only medically licensed um, ayahuasca or plant medicine center in the entire world. It's medically licensed by Costa Rica. They have like an on-site pharmacy. They do colonics there. They have massage. It's like a 10-star ayahuasca resort. It's really amazing place for people who need that experience, because not everybody can go to the jungle and rough it, even though I've done both, you know, and especially if you have injuries or some sort of ailments. My wife and I first did ayahuasca with, together maybe like 9 years ago. And it took a few ceremonies, maybe like 5 ceremonies before I really started seeing things. But I did get results the first time. I felt very present. We went down to a place called Temple of the Way of Light in Peru. And that was my first, extended ayahuasca journey where we were in the jungle, in Amazon jungle, for 14 days. And we did it 4 times. And in there, I was just feeling like I was really peeling back the layers and really just getting deeper and deeper with each ceremony. Not until I went to Rhythmia did I start getting the full-on journeys, because I'd already done ayahuasca maybe around 8 times. But my 8th to 12th time was at Rhythmia, and at that point, a lot of different things that had affected me in my childhood, my upbringing, some traumas that happened, I really did address. I'm not going to get into the details of all my traumas and everything here. I do have a couple of videos explaining that on my YouTube, but I'll tell you why I'm so amazed at, plant medicine in general, because I've done combo, ayahuasca, psilocybin mushrooms, San Pedro, and a few other things. These plants, as a lot of people listening, and for sure, have existed for thousands of years and have helped with all types of traumas and issues, especially emotional and psychological. Right now, what's going on in the US is that so much research has been put on independently on plant medicines, like even other psychedelics like MDMA, that there is a movement to legalize it all throughout the US. In 2019 alone, there was 100 different, minimum 100 different cities in the US that had the decriminalization of all psychedelics on their ballot. Last year and the year before that, Oakland decriminalized all mushrooms, psilocybin mushrooms. Santa Cruz decriminalized all naturally occurring plants and fungi, including ayahuasca, San Pedro, and iboga. Denver did the same thing. Chicago's done it. Now there's a handful of them that have done it. The reason why is not because they're like, oh, there's no harmful effects from this, so let's legalize it, even though that is the case for many of them. People aren't really getting that much harmful, very minimal cases that are harmful, to none at all. But it's because they're seeing the results through these studies. People are getting the number one issue right now that is really being focused on and really being addressed with plant medicine use in the US and worldwide. And that is the entry level in order for this to become decriminalized, legalized, and then soon promoted and given to basically the world, is the cure for PTSD. The veterans, believe it or not, are the ones that have pushed forward the legalization, decriminalization of psychedelics and other fungi and plants all over the US. And it's because they've been taking it because nothing else is working. They go to these ceremonies, they get healed from these traumas, and now then they go ahead and present these bills. So that's just the entry level thing. There are many other ailments that have been addressed. There's documentaries on YouTube even where people have gone down to ayahuasca with 13 different chronic illnesses, and 13 people, 13 different chronic illnesses. All 12 of them were healed except for one, and the one that wasn't healed was so someone who went there the whole time saying this will never work, right? Diabetes, type 2 diabetes, cancer. So now you cannot, there's too much evidence, there's too many documentarians, there's too many celebrities even that are doing this, even Mike Tyson, even Joe Rogan, right? It's this happening on this level where it's become so mainstream. The studies have been done, the results have come out, and now there's even a publicly traded company in Canada that's coming out with their first over-the-counter psilocybin microdose within the next 2 years, right? So this thing is going to really benefit the world in a way that now that we're using it clinically, we can actually address it, because every plant medicine isn't for everyone. Let me just give that disclaimer out there. You can't just go and do it and have an expectation from it. A lot of times it might be calling you, it may not be. Some things work for people, some things don't. A lot of times I see that the majority of people get the benefit from this. So since that's the case, now that we're able to do it clinically and kind of study what each dose does and be very intentional with it and how much this can create what for you, and also have therapy involved in it, it's just next level, really. We are now combining the modern world with therapy with the old ways, right? And one more thing I'll add to this is when you talk to the shamans, down in Amazon or in other places, a lot of them don't do plant medicine all the time. Some of them, um, some of them drink a little bit to be somewhat on your level while they're facilitating ceremonies, but some of them and their kids even or people in the community may have done a psychedelic just once in their life. And when you ask them, an answer you would usually get is that we don't they basically don't need it because they're already in nature and surrounded by these vibrations. But the reason why people from the Western world, from the cities, come down there and always go into these experiences and need so much more is because we have so much stimuli, we have so much distorted energy, we're disconnected from Earth, disconnected from each other, and we're on this rat race, right, to survive. So right now, part of the prophecy is that in these days, that the psychedelics that have been utilized by these ancient cultures for so long are going to resurrect and go throughout the whole entire world in order to give us these tools in order to kind of disconnect and still really focus our energy and be happy and joyful, even though this world is so fast paced and so crazy and full of all this stimuli. So that's why I think that what's happening right now in regards to us figuring out a way in order to integrate it into society is going to be instrumental in assisting us of still being the productive society that we want to be, still focusing on, our dreams and aspirations to keep creating, but also um, have it that we don't have to come from a place of trauma while we're doing that.
Wonderful, wonderful. Another individual who you have glorified to a great extent on your program seems to be Laura Eisenhower. Seems like every so often I see from one of your updates that you're having a session with her, and she's presented a lot, and I've seen a lot of her presentations at conferences, spoken to her a few
Yeah, I'm
times,
sure you
and
have. Yeah.
yes. Um, so I guess. Well, for lack of a better question, what is it that she discusses that you feel is worth enlightening people about? Because you've listened to her so many
Okay.
times, and so have I.
Yes.
So why don't you talk about the important things that you've heard her say that you feel are
Yeah.
worthy of getting out to people?
Yeah. So with Laura, she has like her own pretty huge following. So when we do, there's certain people I work with that basically when they do the events, is their community that they're already connected with are the ones that come and sign up for their events, right? So she does a lot of like astrological updates that people love, energy of the moments and what's happening, especially with astrology. And then she connects the astrology to our galactic history and galactic origins. She speaks on many topics, but she doesn't speak on all of them on our platform. She focuses a lot on the galactic alignments, the energy of the cosmos, but also the journey and the story of our galactic history as she's researched it in regards to all the fragmentations and the fractalizations that have occurred of humanity before we incarnated here. So that's my favorite subject with her. Um, it's she's like so we do those events with her and have her community come out, and then every now and then I take some of the footage from those events and I put it on a YouTube. And right now you're seeing that because we just did a big event with her called Unveiling Galactic Heritage. That was a 3-day event on galactic origins, and with 10 hours a day. And so I chopped up a lot of that footage and started putting it on YouTube because it was really awesome information. For her, she's almost like an like not a like a self-empowerment coach. That's like the base level, but she's like an esoteric empowerment coach where just the downloads that she gives and the things that she says are very inspiring to people. And then couple that with the whole story of our galactic history and origins. So we can pretty much go in any direction when we have a conversation with her, and there's always like in just one sentence, one response that she has, there's always like 12 different things that she referred to that we could go down a route and keep communicating and having a conversation on. So she's just a plethora of really a range of information. So it's always fun to have her on.
I'm sure it is. Another individual here who, two very popular videos, Jason Quit, saw
Yep.
him at a couple of conferences. People associate him with time travel, but the popular videos he's done here seem to be about ancient Egyptian postures. Now, when he's
Yes.
talking about that, is he like talking about the posture that the Bangles glorified in that 1980 song "Walk Like an Egyptian"? And as a matter of fact, is there actually that half swastika position? It sort of looks like.
Yeah.
Is there actually some metaphysical power to putting your body in that position and walking, shifting like that? in such a manner? I can't help but ask that. And what exactly is he talking about regarding ancient Egyptian postures? This was 10 months ago. Do you remember what
Yeah.
this was all about?
Yes, yes. And it was like I only released it 10 months ago. It was a workshop online conference like 2 years ago, the online workshop. So that's when we did it. And yes, basically the more and more I do research now, the more I realize that yoga and the the different positions of yoga probably had its foundations and root in Egypt. And part of that is because the Indus civilization, that Mohenjo-daro and Harappa were both a part of, that's in current Afghanistan, Pakistan, North India. That was the founding civilization to basically the whole of the Indian continent. And I'm Indian, so like basically they're my forefathers, 3000, 2000 BC. Definitely had immigrants from part of the suburbs of Egypt, probably the land of Kush, and direct people from Egypt as well that went over the Red Sea through current day Yemen over into Afghanistan, crossing the next sea right there, and they took with them all of this information on spirituality, esoterics, chakra system. A lot of information that became the foundation for the Vedic scriptures that were made 1,500 years ago in the same area in 1500 BC. So the Egyptian postures are ancient ways in order to shape your body and to maneuver your body in order to align with specific energies that allow for you to have spiritual experiences. In Egypt, it could have been that in Egypt, and I'm just going to throw this out there because it was spend a lot more time going over the research because I'm currently in the phase of researching this, is that Egypt is definitely longer, thousands of years older, right? That's pretty much coming onto the mainstream now as well. And there was a time in Egypt where the veils were thinner, if you so to speak, in order that they were able to connect to realms of divine and spirituality and consciousness and extraterrestrials or whatever it really was. I'm not going to speculate on how they were doing it, what they were doing, but there was definitely some sort of higher level of spirituality. As the devolution of humanity happened and we began that kind of faded a little more and more, different tools and techniques were created in Egypt, such as the Ankh and different other tools and pyramid structures, as well as body structures, as well as the introduction of vowel sounds, because vowels were not there in ancient Egypt. For example, the word Ankh was actually Unk, Nkah, Nkh, not Ankh, because A was silent because vowels weren't used. And then they started creating this whole system of beliefs and like let's say maybe 4,000. I'm going to throw out like maybe 5,000 to 3,000 BC. It was really the most this was happening before the introduction of written language. They were creating these belief systems, these tools, these structures, and these body movements in order to maintain a level of consciousness in a world where we were devolving. So then they took this information and wisdom, part of the breakaway civilization from there, went into the Indus civilization that was also bordering the ending remnants of the Sumerian civilization that was from the 5000 BC to 3000 BC. So the Sumerian civilization, the Mesopotamian civilizations that went down south into the Indus Valley, and the Egyptian civilization that broke away and also went into the Indus Valley combined to create the Indus civilization that became the founding race of the whole of the subcontinent of India. And they took with them these Egyptian postures. And that's basically, he's showing the Egyptian postures and how to use them. But I just gave you all the context around really, the history of it.
Thank you very much. Also, interesting fact. I always changing the subject here. I always well, not always, but most of the time when I'm doing a radio show, I wear blue and turquoise, very good colors for communication and such. And I think
Uh-huh.
starting on this show regularly, on this show, this is the first day I've actually wearing a shirt with the Mandalbrot set on it and the equation of y equals z squared plus c that the Mandalbrot set is well known for. I have often said that the Mandalbrot set is perhaps the greatest mathematical representation of how we are living in a infinite consciousness reality where every small part is part of the greater whole, and even every small thing that change it, no matter how small it is, will affect everything in the greater whole, even at such a small level that is, for all intents and purposes, non-existent, but still happens, and it has to happen by virtue of the fact that everything is connected. Nassim
Hmm.
Harriman, he is one individual who has talked a lot about sacred geometry and uh, things like the Mandalbrot Set and such. I guess if you have anything to say about the Mandalbrot Set as well as other mathematics and geometries that can explain our reality, then I guess now would be a good time for me to let you spill the beans on this subject matter.
Hmm. So I know of the Mandalbrot set, but I'm not versed in it enough to communicate about it. So I know I want to go into something that I'm not really aware of. But what I will do is I'll go into how I got into Nassim Harameyn's information and why I like Dan Winter and Nassim Harameyn, who are two individuals that really are doing a lot of research in regards to consciousness science. And our new website is actually going to our new website that's going to launch pretty soon within a week or two. It's going to be much more robust than we currently have, around 10,000 hours of footage on many different many different topics. Has a section called conscious science, and if you really want to learn more about this, for everybody listening, that's the best place to go. Another detour I'll give before I get back to it is we just did a whole entire conference yesterday called Pyramid Knowledge Conference that was like esoterics, ancient history, science, mathematics of the pyramids, and that also goes into a lot of conscious science that really shows the advanced awareness of the ancients in regards to mathematics. The Egyptians, especially, oh my God, like their understanding of mathematics blows my mind. It's a couple of different like calculations of diameters and like the number of rocks inside a pyramid, etc., have actually resulted in us going to Mars and looking at the coordinates that are given from there. And we also showed this yesterday's presentation that would also go to areas on Mars that also anomalies are that look like pyramid structures. So it's just the advanced level of ancient science is also partially what got me into doing this in the first place, realizing that the ancients knew this wisdom about some sort of advanced sciences that we're only now rediscovering, but they did it in this acoustic, harmonic, almost organic way where we're creating all this external technology. Recently, I've been finding out a lot about the yuga cycles, and I've realized that, we know that, for example, the yuga cycles will be the dark age, the golden age, the bronze age, the silver age. Many different civilizations have spoke about these ages. Only the Indian Vedas have the dates of these ages. And in the Vedas, it says that the energy of the age that's before the current age is how we interpret the theme of the current age. So, for example, the last age was the age of energy. This age is the age of materialism. So now we're using energy, we're using materialism, material ways in order to convey the energy. So we have like outlets, plugs, everything is, we have computers. That's how the energy is flowing. When you're in a golden age, you're coming out of the age of the mind, which is the age of telepathy. So you're creating using the telepathy and your own consciousness in order to convey energy, which so it becomes completely different, and science looks completely different than it currently does. So that's just a detour right there. But let me get back to talking about the science of what Nassim Haramein and Dan Winter's doing. So when I first, Nassim was actually the first individual. I watched like a 11-hour of a video on him in 2001, and that was part of like one of the first series of things I'd ever watched on these topics. And in this video, he's talking about his journey, like in the basically when he was a child and how he awoken to all this information. He said he was in a school bus, right, and he had this out of body experience. And I'm going to fast forward just to what his experience was. And as he was having this experience, he zoomed out of the bus that he was, like his body, like his soul consciousness, whatever, zoomed out of the bus and kept going further and further and out into Earth's atmosphere until he saw it as a dot. And then he saw Earth going further out as a solar system. Earth was a dot. Solar system going further out into the galaxy. The galaxy was a dot. Further out into the universe, the universe became a dot. And even further out into the multiverse. And he started realizing that all creation is in this one speck of light. Like we're all is infinite manifestations in this one conscious being. And the further you go out, the more perspective you have, the more of one unit that it becomes. So at that point, I think he was like 13 years old. He dedicated his life to attempting to discover, attempting to explain our unity and our oneness through mathematics. And that's basically why he's got the unified field theory and all of these other components. Dan Winter is doing a similar thing. It's attempting to explain the unity consciousness within within the realm of science. I think it was 1921, there was a physicist. He discovered, well, they were started doing research on the fifth dimension. We've heard this term quite often, right? The fifth dimension, and he scientists actually have been trying to explore the fifth dimension for over 100 years, trying to figure out what it is. CERN has actually released documents saying that they're trying to figure out the fifth dimension, and that they've seen that if when you combine two electrons together, that there's a leaking effect, an effect of some of that electron phases out into another dimension that they believe is the fifth dimension. So in essence, they found a way to make energy from this reality transfer into a fifth dimensional reality. So even in 1921, I forget the name of this physicist, but when he was doing an experimentation and theorizing on what is the difference between this third dimension, fourth dimension being time, and the fifth dimension, is that in the third dimension, all the forces of nature seem to be conflicting with each other or working independently of each other. There's electromagnetism. And I'm going to actually, while I'm talking to you, I'm going to Google the different forces so I can explain it better, and other forces. So there's basically multiple different forces: the electromagnetic force, gravitational force, and there's two other types of forces. And they seem in this reality, third dimension, fourth dimension being time, so we exist within both, that they conflict with each other. But when you get into the fifth dimension, theorizing, these aren't esoteric individuals. Maybe they were, but they're just mainstream physicists. Weren't like in Ascension technology, weren't trying to talk about ETs, but the theory was that in the fifth dimension, the seemingly opposing forces that exist within this dimension unite to become one. So what did they explain right there? They pretty much explained unity consciousness and fifth dimensional awareness in the terms of physics based on their own understanding of physics at that moment. 100 years later, our technology has advanced, our understanding has advanced, we've been able to mimic it and over and over and over again at CERN. They've been doing these experiments on it. So now what Nassim and Dan and many other people have been exploring for quite some time and trying to figure out, not everybody is right. I don't agree with everything everybody says. Some concepts I don't even understand, but I do appreciate the fact that everybody's attempting to explore, because it's not like if you have something wrong, you're like nefarious and have an alternative agenda. You're attempting to explore this reality, and we have amnesia. We don't have complete remembrance of everything, so we're going to try to figure it out and make mistakes along the way. But what they're discovering now through physics is that in the higher dimensions you go, it only makes sense that more of these forces combine. What happens when more of these forces combine? Your ability to manipulate and have control of the way this reality represents for you or manifests for you is more of a possibility. And now we get into, maybe you don't need to be in the Goldilocks zone if you live in the fifth dimension. Maybe different forces of the nature and cosmos and the earth won't affect you negatively because you have more of an ability to shift and charge it. So that's all I'm going to say with that. I took many different tangents, but I really wanted to kind of encompass why science and consciousness science is important, because through this aspect, actually, I will add something else to it. Quantum physics, for example. Quantum physics is basically tapping into the subatomic world. There's different theories out there. There's different agendas with quantum physics that maybe aren't really about, consciousness and ascension and spiritual or whatever, right? But what they've discovered now is that we have now pierced the veil. We used to think the atom was the smallest thing. Now we realize that there's something smaller than that, the subatomic world. We're now looking through and seeing the code of the computer program that we live within. We're in the preliminary phases of this, and we're trying to figure out how to use it. But now all of these UFOs, that are coming out that they're showing, whoever is driving them is obviously already understanding these concepts of quantum physics and vibration and frequency that we're only theorizing about right now. So whether they're UFOs, ETs, aliens, governments, hollow earth people, whatever is driving them, we have now shown that there are definitely craft out there that are using advanced quantum physics that the mainstream of the world has only been told as theories at this moment, right? So it's just really interesting what is going on right now. We're kind of in the in-between phase, really. All we can do is just be true to ourselves, putting forward the information we want, but it's really like, where are we going to be at the end of this? What is going to happen now? We have the ability to utilize frequencies in order to heal and align different things in our body. But we also have a capitalist society with a pharmaceutical company, pharmaceutical organization that does not want you to figure out how to heal yourself permanently because they want to keep you on this cycle of paying for medication. So it's like, not only do we have the ability to create this world and use this science to change the world, but we also are kind of stumping ourselves because we've created this world of such greed that we're almost halting ourselves from moving forward. So a evolution of consciousness is what's needed.
Well said there, indeed.
Hmm.
And you mentioned that thing about the not having to be in the Goldilocks zone of a solar system in order to survive if you're in the fifth dimension. Well, I don't know if it's necessarily being in the fifth dimension. Any planet, I recently saw an interview that Brad Johnson, who channels Adronis,
Yeah.
uploaded, talking about the true nature of the sun, and he mentioned the idea that planets have their own, and I even get into in my interview with John Lear way back in the day with this, where planets have their own consciousness filtering system within their atmospheres that allows for the sun, which does not radiate heat but
Hmm.
transfers energy across the web to the planets, and they can allow for life to exist regardless of where the planet's
Yeah,
location is.
I agree with that too.
Yes, there is another video here. This happens to be the third most popular interview, not an interview, but video that you have on your channel. The solar system's motion through space, um, talking about how the solar system, it looks. I guess the best way to describe this is a spiraling, corkscrewing traffic cone, where you
Hmm.
picture it like a traffic cone with the put on the ground, the sun, like a ball at the top of the cone that represents the sun. Draw a straight line down from the sun through the middle of the traffic cone to the ground, and then put little marbles, I guess, on the outside of the traffic cone representing the planets from the top to the bottom of the cone. And imagine that moving through space, spiraling and corkscrewing through space at tremendous velocity. The planets are orbiting not the sun, but that imaginary line that goes down from the sun, the ball, to the through the center of the traffic cone to the ground. This video is only 17 seconds long, but it's got a lot of views, and it 232,000 in the past 10 years. It's not the only one here, but it was pointed out by Cliff High, the Webbot guy, that the phenomenon known as retrograde that we see, which of course is affecting us now, hasn't affected us too much with this interview, I'm glad. The Mercury retrograde and the other retrogrades that we see would not exist if the flat disk shape of the solar system existed. They can only be explained by this spiraling, corkscrewing traffic cone shape. So, have you looked into this? Do you have anything to say about this phenomenon, or just
Yeah, of the that the video represents.
yeah?
Yeah. Okay. So I put that up 10 years ago, right? I had a huge evolution since then. And even though Nassim Haramein shows this same video, I believed it back then, but now I'm open to suggesting that it could be completely different as well. And I do know, like, that's what the conventional wisdom is, that we're going through space at this huge speed, and then all the planets are going around us too. Like, we show in videos and the universe inside and different things on the History Channel shows a sun in the middle, shows this perfect round circles of orbits around the sun, and then it shows Pluto has more of an elliptical orbit that sometimes crosses over Neptune's orbit, and has a orbit of 248 Earth years for one rotation around the sun. And then you put that into this model that they did a computer program of the speed and everything, and that's what comes out, right? I'll always say that even if somebody I feel that's credible puts this thing out, in my mind, I'm a skeptic and I use my discernment. I'm open to things changing, and that's what's really important right now. Is that as we're discovering more and more of this reality, don't think like that's why some scientists are really holding themselves by are stunning themselves by thinking that now that we know this is what it is. And the only way we've ever got forward is through the art of philosophy, which is what science originally was, which is basically questioning what next, what else, what next. For example, we used to think that humanity and Homo sapiens, like ourselves, were only 100,000 years old until we found another Homo sapien body skeleton that was 300,000 years old. And now mainstream archaeologists are saying, oh, Homo sapiens, we've only been here for 300,000 years. Well, didn't the evidence that you just got about us being 100,000 years old and now us being 300,000 years old make you believe that maybe we could be older? And why would you just use what you just discovered in order to be like, oh, okay, we found somebody that much, this must be the first human ever? That just doesn't make any sense. That's what's happening in our understanding of the universe. Not too long ago, people didn't realize that we're actually had a collision course and been integrating with a dwarf galaxy called Sagittarius Galaxy for 10 billion years. And for the last millions of years, it's been integrating with us. And now scientists even say that Earth could have probably come from that dwarf galaxy and been sucked into our galaxy, into the solar system, right? So it keeps expanding. Getting back to that video now, what I do understand and what I'm understanding about the universe and the way it works is that even though technically we've been untaught and it's been said that there is no up and down, north and south, east and west in space, we still talk about space as if it is. Why is it then when we show Earth, we show it the way we do with the northern hemisphere and the southern hemisphere? Technically, that's a human construct. There is no up, down, north, south. Why can't that be east and west and we turn the Earth on a different axis, right? If there isn't anything like that. So let's just pretend that the the Milky Way galaxy, the flat plane of the Milky Way galaxy, if you can ever imagine an image of it just like being right parallel to your eyesight, and then a bulge in the middle which represents the supermassive black hole and all the stars around it, which is near the constellation of Sagittarius A. If we imagine that, right, not only is Earth not in the position that we used to be told it was in, by the way. We used to be told we're in the end of the spiral, one of the ends of the spiral. But now it's almost like they have readdressed this, and this is something as well that, people thought that they knew, but now we say something else, is that Earth is almost like towards the middle, close to the middle of between the edge of the black hole in the center and the edge of the galaxy, somewhere in the middle right there. Not only are we doing a full rotation around the central massive supermassive black hole in the center of our galaxy, which takes, I don't know the number, but they definitely put the number out there how long it takes, but we're also doing a spiral, which is what this video is trying to showing, up and down, over and under the plane of the Milky Way galaxy. So think of the plane, we go above the plane, under the plane. Call the plane the photon belt. Call the plane the ether level. Call the plane the milk of the Milky Way galaxy. Whatever you want to call it, that's basically what it is. And our solar system goes 200 light years above the flat plane and 200 light years below. So we're doing this serpent-like Fibonacci kind of spiral up and down our galaxy as we're rotating around the entire galaxy too, as our solar system is speeding through our actual galaxy, and as our galaxy is speeding through space, right? So all of these amazing mathematical, why isn't it that we just fall out? Like the gravity, the way everything is put together, the mathematical equations of how everything works out makes it that works. So the way our solar system is moving through space and through our galaxy is much more complex. We do know now that it is going above and below the flat plane, called the flat plane, the photon belt, or the ether, and we do know that it's rotating around it. Whether we're going to discover more and more research in the near future of different anomalies, or that are only anomalies to us because we don't kind of grasp it at this moment, and it's going to add to that explanation of how we're actually maneuvering in the galaxy, who knows? But all I can really say is that the way our Milky Way is structured, what's occurring, the types of integrations that are happening with other galaxies is much more diverse and complex than we've ever been taught, and it's coming out now. It's pretty beautiful.
Well said. Damn, I seem to have lost my train of. Oh yes. You have done a lot of work regarding spiritual healings with sound and such, and using things like Tibetan singing bowls, the didgeridoo, and other accessories and such. I seem to recall one time one of the healings that you were doing. in such, you were someone else. I think it was you, was in front of me, and I had to scratch myself, and it turns out the exact moment I lifted up my hand to scratch myself, I made contact with you. How interesting that the universe decided to have that happen in a untimely, or should I say untimely manner to ruin the healing. But I don't know, maybe we're more connected than we know somehow. But anyhow, um, the healings that you do and the instruments that you use, why don't you get into a little science behind how those healings work and the specific instruments that you think are worth using, the didgeridoo, the singing bowls, and all the rest of them. Enlighten us on the science behind how this works.
Yes. So my wife and I, we do sound vibrational events utilizing different tools. I'm definitely into sound frequency in general. I've done quite a few presentations. We also teach a course on it. A few of my presentations are sound and vibration, ancient civilizations, a 3 hour thing on a 3 hour presentation going deep into different ancient structures and sites and how they use frequencies and harmonics and acoustics. And then sound and vibration, quantum metaphysics, talking about the similarities between metaphysics and quantum physics and the science behind sound and vibration. And then also another presentation called Sound and Vibration Future Applications. And that's what's basically the future of this technology and how we can use it to heal, align ourselves. And that's basically where we're getting at with this conversation here, is that we are all vibratory beings. We are now discovered that everything vibrates on the subatomic level. But not only does it vibrate, it actually vibrates in and out of perception of reality. So when you look at what they call strings, but maybe it's actually something else, but that's what quantum physics is calling it. When you look at it, the vibrations are actually phasing in and out of reality, almost like a hologram, actually exactly like a hologram. So not only are we discovering that we're made of all the same kind of vibratory energy, but we're also discovering that we're like phasing out in and out of reality. But why do we see ourselves as physical beings? Why is this computer the computer? Why is this? So therein lies the illusion. But what we are now rediscovering is, since everything is vibration and frequency, we're also able to create vibrations and frequencies to have certain effects on us physically, emotionally, and beyond. And not only that, even maybe utilized for levitation technology. And I have a video on portalascension.org of levitation of rocks using sound frequencies in a study that was done in Russia. So it's not like it's far-fetched, it's actually happening. So if we can use these sound frequencies to manipulate and shift our reality, right? And that can even go to stories such as the Pumapunku, not in Pumapunku, but in Cusco in Peru. There are some stone structures there that have been kind of like, they don't even have, in between the stones, you cannot even fit like a blade of hair or glass or anything in between them, because they're so jam-packed together, and they're made in a way that is almost impossible to have actually created. So the ancient stories are that they use some sort of sound frequency technology to make the matter within the rock liquid so that they can put it together, and then they use that same technology in order to solidify it again so that it would fit perfectly like that. So we're hearing these stories from ancient times. We're rediscovering our ability to use sound frequency. Dr. Emoto came out and started using sound frequencies and realizing water would take on different shapes, really disharmonic, chaotic shapes if disharmonic, chaotic things was said or music was played. Very harmonious, sacred, geometrical, beautiful shapes when things were said beautifully, and beautiful sounds were coming out of anything. So we are discovering that sound frequency affects everything and anything. Not only does it definitely affect the water, and we're 75+% of water, and we drink water all the time, but it definitely affects everything on the cellular level. It changes the frequency of it all. So now that we're understanding this, let's get into the fact that the spiritual individuals for the last 100 years have been taking sound frequency, sound healing to this other level that never existed in the past, because different civilizations would just use their tools. But now we have like epic sound baths, people going around, tools from 20 different countries in the world in one sound experience. Individuals are getting people attending these events are getting assistance from being so full of anxiety, having high blood pressure, many different things. And you have to be careful what you say, because since this isn't medical science yet, and even though some medical science is using it, you can't say that it's healing and curing, even though we're witnessing some miraculous things coming from it. So now that that is occurring, a lot of people are being attracted to not only becoming sound practitioners, which is why we teach and train people to do it, but they're also getting attracted to purchasing these instruments, using binaural beats to keep them centered and calm. As time progresses, as we put more money into this stuff, as more research is coming out, Nassim Harriman, Dan Winter, definitely two people that are doing work. Michael Tellinger's work with some people that work on frequency technology as well. As we start doing that, we start using this stuff that's just been like delegated to a meditation event, and we start utilizing specific frequencies to give you certain effects. A great individual that did this was Rife. He actually has something called a Rife machine, and he had calculated different frequencies to help with different types of cells, like cancer cells, and he was having great effects on it. So now the science is getting out there. The science is already there, really. The science is there and available for everyone, but more and more people are gravitating towards it. And as I said in the last segment where I just spoke, that right now the reason why it's not being taken to the level that it should be is really because of the money being made on keeping people sick. And when that kind of gets addressed in a good manner, then we will see more of this technology being used. Some of the instruments that we use Tibetan bowls, we use didgeridoos, we use tuning forks, we have solfeggio healing tubes, we have tingsha bells from India, we have a thunder drum, which gives you the sound of thunder, sounds like a gong actually, and a few different instruments that we've collected along the way. And different ones, the bowls say that they help with different chakras. Ultimately, the science behind it is that the frequencies allow you to go to a theta state brainwave. Theta state brainwave is the brainwave state that you're in when you're in your deep meditation. And what happens is when you're trying to meditate normally, you might take 20, 30, 40, 50 minutes to get there, or you might never get there. But playing these sound tools allows your brain to get to that state within like 5 to 10 minutes. They've hooked people up to EEG machines. So you're able to go to a theta state wave, which is deep meditation. And most of us know at deep meditation, there's many benefits that you can get from it. You can go within, you can help yourself align different things going wrong in your body, calm yourself down, help with the emotional, mental issues. So that's what's happening with the science. Now, each of these claim to have different frequencies that they can affect for different parts of the body. The science is still not fully there for that. However, people claim to use the heart chakra bowl and have a heart chakra awakening. I would say it's 50% frequency, 50% science, 50% belief system. It's a frequency. It's designed for this area. That area has known to resonate to that. It's going to help. The other half of it is how much you believe it. If you play these tools, I've seen it many, many times, and you believe like this is like BS, this can't help me with this, chances are it won't. It's only half, the frequency is only half the battle. The other part of it is your own belief and the understanding that your vibration and vibration can affect vibration, right? And that's what's happening with many people now. Another tool that I'll bring in some science on as well is the didgeridoo. The didgeridoo, Aboriginal from Australia instrument, dates back, scholars say, could be around 40,000 years old, right? Multiple cycles of time. And this instrument, the original instrument, was actually hollowed out naturally by termites in the outback in Australia. So they didn't, nowadays we go and get these eucalyptus tubes, quartz didgeridoos, PVC pipes, and different types of things where we can carve them out and we can make didgeridoos out of them. But the original didgeridoo was actually already made naturally by termites. Termites would go into these eucalyptus tubes in Australia and they would hollow it out, and then the child, when it was his rite of passage moment, would go out to the wilderness and have to claim his didgeridoo. It's like a phallic symbol, basically, claiming his manhood, and then he would go back to the community, and now he's a man because he's got his didgeridoo. Usually he was on a psychedelic when he had to do this. And the didgeridoo, if you go and get a guitar tuner and you put it at the end of any of these naturally occurring didgeridoos that have been made from thousands of years, and you blow through it, it comes out with a frequency of C sharp. C sharp is also the same tone of the Schumann resonance, 7.8 something. And the Schumann resonance and the C sharp in general has an effect of alkalizing the body. It does the same thing that earthing does. Alkalizes your body, oxygenates your blood cells, helps you go into, helps sicknesses go into remission. So they were using this tool that was naturally carved out by termites. Realize that the termite had it in its DNA, a way to go into this thing and do the exact same process every single time to make sure the end result would be the same frequency for 40,000 years for every single eucalyptus tube that they ever did it to, right? And then the C sharp frequency that it just happened to do is the frequency that helps you alkaline and put all sickness into remission. So what were the Aborigines in Australia doing back then? They were going and getting these sound tools and they were playing it, and it was their instrument for the community. Which ties me into my last thing that I'll say here is that almost all instruments were designed to mimic something heard in nature or your own human voice. And then they were also the first original instruments were also designed to ground and keep people present. And you can look at the instruments, the ancient instruments from different societies, and you can connect it directly to the spirituality. You go to the Buddhists, you get the Tibetan bowl, of course. You go to the Egyptians, you got the current tuning fork that came from the Ankh. You go to the Australian Aborigines, you have the didgeridoo. You go to the Native Americans, you have the shamanic drum, right? Grounded. And the frequencies that emanate from all of these instruments are directly connected to the spirituality and the text that they created. In the Indian tradition, the very high frequency notes. What were they talking about? Star beings, galactic wars, and all of this celestial stuff. You go to the Native Americas accounts in North America, and the drum. What were they connected to? Even though they had a connection to the star people, they're very earth-oriented, grounded, Mother Nature. And the drum is the heartbeat of the earth, the sound of the earth. So this wisdom has been here for so long. Now is the time that we're really bringing it together, and I'm hopeful that within our lifetimes for sure, because it's pretty much there. Like it's just like how psychedelics are coming out right now because people can't deny the research. That's what's happening now too. There's enough rational people on earth that when they see something happen like this rationally and it gets out to enough people, that changes will start happening.
Right, and there was one thing you said that really stood out there was that when more money gets involved into these things,
Hmm.
therein lies a problem. Well, you follow the money, it's not going to want to go into these things. Case in point, well, of course, you got Nikola Tesla many, many years ago with having the tycoons tell him your little box that provides energy to everybody in a city block, there's no profit in that. I'm not interested.
Hmm.
And well, Ted Marr recently, I recently interviewed him, and before then he did an interview with Elena Danaan where he pointed out that the holographic med beds could have been released, but they weren't because someone threatened to blow up DC if they were released.
Yep.
But he asserted that they will probably be released sometime in November. Well, that's what he says. Um, but regarding the money that's going to go into this, you'd like to think that with all the work the white hats are going to do and try to take down the black hats bit by bit more and more to the point where the white hat influence is too strong that the money's going to have to go into these things. Well, okay, that's great, but isn't the idea of expanding consciousness to eventually get to a system where you don't have to use money at all? I mean,
Yes.
that may be a ways down the line, but we're
Yep.
kind of in the road for a rough ride. I did briefly mention this at the beginning. Bo Polney recently did another segment on USA Watchdog with Greg Hunter, and he mentioned that we're in for a very rough ride. He went as far as saying stock market collapse of sorts going on sometime this month. Maybe not a full blown 1929 type crash, but definitely something that's going to be rock the boat a little bit. And the inflation is going to become extremely pronounced. And one might make the argument, shouldn't we want the economy to collapse? Because if it doesn't collapse, we're going to be slaves to the bankers for all eternity. Well, it's kind of a crazy way of looking at it, but how are we supposed to take out the system without getting rid of it all at once? If we're not going to get rid of it all at once, how long do we have to prolong this to the point where people say you're just prolonging our slavery and it isn't getting much better? Can we just get rid of it all
Hmm.
once? And I'm willing to suffer for a little bit just so we can do that. So,
Yeah.
do
I,
you have anything to say about what Bill Pony asserts that this month something big is going to happen regarding inflation in the stock market, and anything you want to say regarding the future of money and how we can transition to no money at all?
Yes, I love that question. So, with regards to what he's predicting in regards to the economy having some sort of tanking or something happening, I haven't done any research to suggest that, so I'm not going to comment on that. But I will say this, that it's a touchy subject because if you say like, I feel the economy needs to crash in order for us to, start and create this new system without money, there's all these people out there that are just going to be upset and angry at you and saying that, oh, you want to create them, you want people to suffer, some people might not eat, all these different things. And then if you say you want the system to continue, then there'll be those that say to you that, hey, aren't you trying to promote a world without money? Why are you talking about that? So it's like there's always someone that will be offended no matter which way you go with this. And the whole component is it's both of them, really. That's what Portal Center represents too. The paradox, the middle ground, is that right now, right? Okay, say that give you an example. Say the Nassim Haramein is a 21-year-old, and let's just say some advanced conscious scientist is a 21-year-old person that just figured out some amazing info that can literally change the world and give us free energy like tomorrow. Or let's just say something lesser, that they've done some frequency technology and this cancer cell has gone to remission, because these things do happen, that this can come out, and have tried to go to different governments, try to go to different medical institutes and tell them, but you keep getting shut down and keep getting shut down. This individual knows that if he spends the next few months researching this technology, can really create. This is actually stories that occur, so I'm not even far off right here. If this individual knows that they could spend the next few months really dedicating their life to this, that they could start getting a product, but they also don't have money because they're doing this full time and they don't have any income to even put towards maybe the structure or the technology or the equipment that's needed for it. So this individual decides, like, you know what? It's not going to happen. I'm just going to drop this. I'm going to go work back at my job as an SEO specialist and just do this because I don't have the time and the funds for it. What has happened there? Well, something that this person cannot dedicate the time, cannot dedicate the resources, can't even pay for it. Maybe this person had to fly to the DC in order to have a conversation with someone that could assist them with another component. Can't even afford that because this person's the 20-something or doesn't have a savings account, can't do it, right? So in this situation, the only thing that would really allow this person to even flourish and do their own thing is if they could cultivate some sort of income, what they were doing, so that they can continue doing their work. And this is what happens with Portal Ascension as well. Like, if I didn't do Portal to Ascension, I wouldn't be able to do any of Portal to Ascension. No events, no content. I would just be working something else. Maybe I do one event a year just for my own passion. So it's paradoxical because money has been utilized as this energy exchange, and Michael Tellinger goes into this as well, that they want us to believe that money was a natural evolution from the world that we lived in which bartering was the main thing. But there is no historical evidence for that. It seems that money was actually imposed onto us at a certain point in order to create the structure. So some people say money is the root of all evil. Some people say no, money is neutral and it has energy. Money is a term of energy exchange that was definitely utilized in a nefarious way and imposed on us in a system that was already working. That is what I believe. So since that had occurred, we're now in this system that they've done exactly what they wanted to do. They wanted to make it in a way that you don't want to be a part of the system, but the only way to get out of it is to be a part of this system. Geniuses. So they've done it in such a way that they've done what, like, basically the Gnostic text talks about, all this stuff. Give them a way out. Give them a way out. You can't completely screw them over. Give them a way out, but you can make it as difficult as you want. So the way out has become, how do you beat them at their own game? Some people don't have to do that, right? Some people will have to do that. So when other people say, no, I don't think that you need to do that, you don't need to beat them at their own game, you can create your own reality, that's beautiful because you're part of the people that will do that. You'll be like, okay, I'm just going to go into the wilderness somewhere, find this little area, start building some mud huts, end up becoming this huge city. I didn't use any money to do it. That's great. Some people will do that in the near future, probably. But then there are other individuals, like the one that I gave you the example, that are only going to be able to spend the time on what they need if they're able to support themselves and live, because the system has been created that you have to pay for food. You have to do all this stuff. In California, raw milk and this place that was creating kombucha was completely like decriminalized. Made into criminals, and for creating. Sorry, they had an organic garden, and they had it in California, and there was a legislation that came out about allowing people to grow food in their own homes. Like, they were really trying to take away our ability to basically sustain ourselves and be more reliant on this system that has been created. So now fast forward to the question. I definitely feel that we need to be at a level of consciousness sometime in our future, 10 years, 100 years, 1,000 years, I don't know, but sometimes in our future where we don't need to use money, and that we realize there's more than enough abundance. Because now let's get into the spiritual concept of this all. Abundance. The universe is full of energy. We're made of energy. Everything is manifested from energy. There's more than enough on Earth for everybody, even though we have such a huge population. Why don't we have it? Because we've been taught that we have lack ever since birth. The governments, the marketing, everybody wants to think that we don't have enough. And the way that governments keep control over other of their population is by thinking that the other is going to take away from you. The other will take away from you. There's not enough for all of us. So we've adopted this mentality all over the entire planet. And but the evidence suggests that there is enough if we were at the level of consciousness in order to have some rational, heart-centered conversations with each other to figure out how we can all live and all benefit from living on Earth. A great example again. 1 month of the military in the U.S. spending can cure world hunger for a whole year, right? What are we doing? What is our focus? What is our intent? Why do we want to create more devastation and control? Is because control is the way that these elite continue to be leaders. What needs to happen again is this shift of consciousness, and that's what's occurring right now. Is people are realizing more and more. If you go back 20, 30 years ago, ask most citizens in the U.S., a handful of citizens, let's say like 20 of people, do you think your government is corrupt? You'll get a good amount of people, but probably no more than half of them. If you go now and you ask everybody, and you say, do you think the government is corrupt? 9 out of 10 people. Complete loss of faith in political leaders. Biden, the most unpopular candidate ever, wins like the majority of the vote. Not because he's popular. People didn't vote for him because of that. It's based on fear and lack mentality. The other is going to take from me. Like it's all based on that. That's how they maintain control. So as people waking up, and now that more and more people have distrust, when I see chaos, when I see confusion in the world, I don't get scared. I get hopeful because we've been in an arrogant world for so long where we thought we knew it all, and we thought the system that we're in was perfect. And now the system that we're in is crumbling. And because the system is crumbling, people are starting getting confused and chaotic, and their lack mentality traumas are coming out to the surface. As their lack mentality traumas come out to the surface, it looks very crazy in the world. But that's only a necessary stepping stone for us to realize that there's more than enough for all of us. And part of that will be that, like, part of that is going to be that us realizing that those that claim to have control of us, those that claim to be in power, really aren't any better than us, aren't telling us the truth anymore. I don't know what's going to happen from that realization, but I do believe that eventually it's going to be a huge awakening of humanity in regards to us realizing our sovereignty, and then what systems and societies and structures we create after that, is going to be yet to be explored. But I do think it's going to be more of a community-based model, less of a hierarchical model, less of a you're better than me and know more than me, but more of like listening to each other and having a true, what democracy was always really supposed to be about, having true people that represent individuals. But the only way we're going to get to that point is if we all collectively work on ourselves spiritually, so that we don't have these deep underlying traumas that make us act out and do things in greedy, materialistic ways in which many of our politicians do.
Right, and I have said many times that I guess the only reason capitalism works better than socialism is because we live on a planet where money exists. And if
Mm-hmm.
money didn't exist and there was no conspiracy by those in power to conceal the technologies and such, then I guess we could have a socialist system where money doesn't exist and technology is not suppressed, which is
Yep.
basically what all the other societies out there in the cosmos are doing, as people like Alex Collier have pointed out. But well, we've already reached about an hour and 20 minutes now, and like I said, I don't want to do 2-hour shows anymore. It's the attention span factor has really been a problem for me in regards to getting a big audience and people wanting to listen to my show because of that. So I have to cut back. And as a result of that, unfortunately, I'm going to have to bring this interview to an end. But we did touch on a lot of very, very good subjects and topics, and definitely
Mm-hmm.
recommend people subscribe to your YouTube channel, and at the very least watch the videos that you upload to YouTube if they can't afford to pay for the things that you offer through your emails and such. So why don't you get out anything you like these last couple minutes?
Yes.
Anything you're planning to do for the future, your contact info. So close us out, Neil.
Yes, yes. So we're launching the new website in the next couple of weeks. So go to portalextension.org, sign up. There's over 3,000 hours of content you can browse through, categories, add to your watch list, and so much more. It's a great, robust system. And then also, I'm actually releasing all of our UFO and ET footage, which is a couple of hundred of hours of all things UFO disclosure and extraterrestrials and all benevolent information about this topic. That's starting on our YouTube. So every single day for the next 2 months, we have something going out, a couple of hundred hours of footage, some incredible information, some deep UFO case studies, experiencer panels, UFO disclosure conferences, ancient alien conferences. So if you want to just like go to our YouTube, youtube.com/portal to ascension, subscribe there, and you can click the notification bell if you want updates, but definitely go and be part of it because there'll be hundreds of people on it every single day. Not only will it be new content that is designed to balance out, this conflicting agenda that's going on, but it'll also be a place where you can have community and communicate with all these people about these topics right now as well.
Thank you very much, Neil. So best of luck to you. Take care. Hopefully, I'll be able to get to one of your conferences in the future.
October 2022, brother, we're going to do Desert Hot Springs in October 2022, Portal to Ascension Conference.
All right, next year, my horoscope does say it's a good travel year for me, so I'll definitely try to keep that in
Let's
mind.
do it.
All right, take care.
Thank
Good
you,
luck.
man. Okay,
Namaste.
take care.
Bye-bye.
Bye.